Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Environmental Data Initiative webinar. For those of you not familiar with EDI, we are an NSF-funded project helping to accelerate the curation and archive of environmental data. We operate and maintain a reliable, registered, and certified trustworthy data repository for ecological research data and provide training on the data archiving process as well as data management best practices. Today, John Ide will be providing a presentation on an overview of a new metadata generation tool that he has helped create, ezEML. So with that, John, the mic is yours.
All right. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. ezEML is a form-based online application to help you streamline the creation of metadata in the Ecological Metadata Language, EML. And it guides you through creating EML metadata, the metadata that describes your data packages in preparation for submitting them to a data repository like EDIs. It's tended to be easy to use, even if you don't know EML or know it only a bit because you don't use it often. What you'll be creating when you use it is an EML document, which can then be downloaded in XML format and then combined with your data tables for submission to a repository. I want to say that ezEML has been a team effort by EDI. It's based on, it uses a Python library called metapype that EDI's Mark Servilla developed. It's a general purpose framework for creating and validating all kinds of metadata, not just EML. And then Dwayne Costa, who has since retired from EDI, but he developed the EML rules that are in metapype, and he started work on an editor that later evolved into what is now ezEML. But everybody at EDI contributed lots of ideas and suggestions and feedback that have been incorporated. Margaret O'Brien, in particular, had contributed some real key ideas. So the ezEML is online at ezeml.edirepository.org. You can access it. You can, if you have an EDI login, you can use that, or you can access it through other logins, as we'll see here in a second. So this is the starting screen, and up here is login. So I'll go log in, and as I said, you can use EDI credentials, which in this case I'm actually using the EDI username. You wouldn't have that, but or you can go in through Google, GitHub, or ORCiD if you have a login with either of those providers. I'm going to log in using EDI. Well, before I do that, let me just point out real quick, there are links up here, and including in particular, there's a user guide that has a lot of information that you can refer to at any time, that typical user guide kind of thing. And there's an about, which has sort of a summary. But let me log in, and I will use the EDI credentials. So here I am. This is the starting page. Now, the very first time you log in, you'll see a welcome message here that describes how you navigate through the application. I will be, showing you that, so we don't have to pause and read this, but that's something that's there to orient you. If later on, after using the program for a while, you want to refresh your memory, you can go back to the user guide, navigating in ezEML, and it has a lot of the same information. Let me point out also that there are help buttons throughout the application that give you information about the particular fields that they are aligned with. So that the hope here is that this will be largely self-explanatory. And it kind of walks you through it. You notice on the left here, there are the various, it's a table of contents, which is the various sections of the EML metadata that you'll fill in. And you can either use the application sort of step by step sequentially as a wizard, or you can just jump, by clicking on one of these links, you can jump right to a particular section. But for now, I'm going to use it as a wizard and just see how that goes. Okay, so when you first come in, the very first thing is to set a title. So you would just type in, I have a lot of text that the browser has cached for me, so so you don't have to watch me typing, but you basically just type that in. And with all of these pages, when you're ready to move on to the next step in the wizard, you do save and continue. And as you do that, as you switch from page to page or section to section here, everything is being saved for you automatically. So the way to think of this is it's as if it's one big form. You're just filling out a form. It happens to be organized as separate pages, but it's basically just one big form. So as you go, it's just remembering everything you've entered. You can, if you want to just be safe, extra safe, you can always click save up here, but you really don't need to. It happens for you as you move through the pages. We did the title. The next section is data tables, and this is sort of the heart of a data package. Let's just look at how this page is, this display here is organized. Every time in the program where you have a list of items, you'll see something that looks like this, where you have the items in the list, and then you have up and down arrows so you can change the order. So I just clicked up arrow to move nitrogen up. I'll move it back down again. So I'm going here. I just went to creators. You see, it's a similar thing, and so on. So that'll be a sort of a paradigm that you'll see over and over. And for each of the items in the list, you have the option of editing it. It's going to make changes, or just to see what's there. Or you can remove it. The remove has a "Are you sure?" So in this case, I don't want to remove it. So let's go in. I have a couple of data tables that I've already entered, so that you don't have to watch me do that. But I will show you how to do one from a CSV file here in a second. But let's just look at one of these. So this decomposition data table, you see that well, let me just back up one second. We're in the data table section, but when I click into one of these, it's sort of like I'm going sideways. I'm going within data table section. I'm not moving on. I'm sort of looking at detail. So I go in to this table, and I see that there's a form with attributes that describe the data table as a whole. And a lot of these fields, as we'll see, are actually filled in automatically for you when you upload a data table CSV file. There are a few things that you have to enter yourself because they can't be inferred from the CSV file. Let me point out also that in all of these forms, there are items that are required, and they're indicated with an asterisk. There are items that are recommended. The EML standard doesn't strictly require them, but they are best practice says you should enter them. And then there are things that are purely optional. So you'll see that notation throughout. So this form is things that apply to the data table as a whole. And then the data table has attributes, which are basically the columns of the table. And if I go in and look at those, I see a list of the attributes in this particular table. And the attributes can have one of four types. That can be categorical, which are coded values, sort of like, I guess R would call them factors. They can be date time values. They can be numerical, and then they can be just a pure text attribute. I don't happen to have one in this particular table, but, and then if you go into any of the attributes, you find a form that describes that particular attribute. And that's where you can enter or change values that pertain to that attribute. And we'll see, like, I'll show you an example of working through this, and you'll see that a lot of this also is inferred automatically, but there are things that can't be, like the definition here, that's just not in the table. Let me point out also that the ezEML, when you upload a data table, it does its best to infer what type the variable is, but you may not want. There may be, for example, a text column where most of the, there's only a small set of unique values, and so ezEML says, oh, that's a categorical variable, but you want to think of it as a text variable. Well, you can always change the type. You can, this case, it was a categorical. I could say, oh, I want it to be text. I'm not going to do that because in this case it's correct. But all right, so going back now, I'm going back towards the data table section. I'm happy with this. I don't need to change anything, so I'll save and continue. And here I am back at the main data tables page. So let me show you now what it looks like to upload a new data table. Oh, maybe I should just real quick. That table that we were just looking at, the decomp, this is what the actual table looked like. So the first, I go back into attributes. The first variable was categorical, and we see that in that column there really are just two codes, two values, and the next one was a bunch of years, and it figured out it was date time and so on. So this is the input that allows, this is your your data table that allows ezEML to extract and infer the attributes. Okay, so now I'm going to go back to data tables. I can just click out here actually rather than step back. You always have the ability to go directly to things. And I'm going to load a new data table from a CSV file. This is just a simplified version of, just has a few columns just to save us some time. So I picked the CSV file from my local hard drive, and I'm uploading. And you see that this is the table here. This is the sample table. The ezEML has figured out a bunch of things here. It figured out a checksum, how many lines are in the table, how many header lines, and so on. Now there's no description in the table itself, so I have to enter a description for the table. It's recommended that I do anyway, and so I entered simple example table. And before I continue, I want to save that change, but let me just real quick, as I go along here, there are certain things that are required and there are certain things that are recommended. How do I know when I've got all those? Well, there's a function down here called check metadata, and if I click that, it checks and it tells me, oh wait, there's a bunch of attribute definitions that I have to supply and so on. That's because I just uploaded that table, but there are certain things in that table that that I have to supply by hand. So I don't have to know coming in what the required things are. The program points me to them. And then for any one of these, well, which attribute is it talking about? Well, I just click on the link and it takes me to the attribute in question. Okay, so back to where we were. I had uploaded this sample table, and these were the attributes for the table as a whole. And I've added this description, but now I'm going to go in and look at the attributes themselves. So the year attribute, that is in fact in that table, it is a year attribute. That was a good call. And it does have the YYYY. In other words, it's a 4-digit year format. So that's all good. So I add a definition for it. And in this case, there is a missing value code that's used in this data set. So I can put that in and then save and continue. And then on to the next attribute. This one's categorical. ezEML saw that in that column, there were just 3 different codes, 1, 2, and 3, but it can't know what 1, 2, and 3 stand for, what their definitions are. So we go in and edit those. So code 1. Now these are actually arms, 3 different arms of a site. So that's what the codes stand for. So I'm just putting in the definitions. Back to the attribute, and that attribute, here's the definition. Experimental plots were located along 3 arms. Put that in. Oh, and this one also has missing value code, so I'll put that, get that, save and continue. Now let me just real quick jump out to check metadata again. And we see that there were a number of things missing from the data table. That list is now shrinking because we're filling things in, we're fixing it. So now back to where we were. The sample table, I was editing attributes. I did year, I did arm, net primary. This one is a numerical field, net primary production. Here's a definition. Now, because it's numerical, and if I just bring up the table again, it's just, it's a decimal values. We need to specify a unit. There are a number of units that are predefined, part of the standard, and this particular one is grams per meter squared per year. So I take that. And we'll see in a second what happens if we have a unit that's not in the list. Again, it has a missing value code. So we take that. The next one, it's another numerical attribute. And then in this case, which one is it here? I forget what there it is. This one, the unit actually is this grams per square meter per centimeter. So it's not in the list, but you can just enter in a custom unit. And again, missing values, codes. And finally, here's a text field, which we didn't see in the other example. And it just requires a definition. Name of site, and it does have missing value codes. Okay, and back. So I've gone through each of the attributes and filled in the missing information, saving it. And then now if I look at check metadata, there are no errors under data tables. So we've completed that section. If I had more tables in this data package, I would just upload another one. Fill in its missing values and so on, its missing fields. But we're done. We're saying this is our total data set here. And then, so I go on to the next, save and continue will take me on to the next step in the wizard. As part of the metadata, we want to specify the creators of the data set, and I have a bunch pre-entered here. But and again, this is another one of those lists where you have up and down arrows to change the order. You can go in and edit, and you can remove. And the order here actually potentially matters because as the help tells us, citations generally list creator names in the order given in the metadata, so that that can be an important consideration. But let's say we're happy with the order that we have. We can add an additional creator just by clicking add creator, and we get a blank form to fill in. I'm going to cancel out of that. Or we can go in and modify one of the existing creators, like add a position name, for example, whatever is required. We can also, as I'll show you in a minute, we can import, well, let me just give you a hint here, or preview, that there's an import menu up here where you can import things from other documents, or you can import within the document that you're currently working on. And so that's useful that in a couple of ways. If over time you build up a repertoire of packages that you've worked on and saved, you might be using, excuse me, you might be using some of the same personnel over and over. And rather than type in all their information, you can just pull it in from one of the existing documents. Or within the document you're working on, some of the contacts might be the same people as their creators, and rather than having to re-enter them, you can reuse them. So let's say I'm, excuse me, I'm happy with this list of creators, and I go on to contacts. Well, I don't have any contacts specified yet. And actually, if I do check metadata down here, I will see, oops, at least one contact is required. That's required by the standard. So I'll go back here and, whoops, sorry, contacts. And I can, in this case, the contacts that I want to add are actually, I could type them in, with a blank form, but they're actually among the creators. So I'll just do import responsible parties, which is the EML terminology for creators and contacts organizations. And I'm going to import from within the package I'm currently working on. So I'm basically pulling out of one section of this current package and importing into another section. So if I open it up, I see I have I'm importing responsible parties. So here's the list of all the responsible parties in this package. And what I want to do is pull out a couple of the creators and make them contacts. Okay, so this is who I'm importing, and this is the role that they should have in this, how they should be imported. And they're being imported as contacts. So I do that, and now I see that they are there in the contacts. And if I go back now to check metadata again, I no longer have that error telling me that I need a contact. I've taken care of that. All right, so let's say that's all of our contacts. We want to move on to the next step. Save and continue. Associated parties, these are what are associated parties. We can look at the help. There are people who are involved with the data in some way, technicians, students, and so on, that are not, they're not really creators, but they're definitely involved in the creation of the data. These are not required, but we do have one here. And again, the form looks just like all the other personnel forms. So once you've done one or two of those, it all looks very familiar. Let's say that's all the associated parties we want. We do save and continue. Metadata providers, that can be, if I don't know, if you had Colin, for example, work on shaping your metadata, well, then maybe he'd be a metadata provider. In this case, we don't have one. Let's go on. Then we have an abstract, which is, you're familiar with that idea. It's just an abstract for the data package as a whole. Save and continue. keywords. And let me just say along the way that especially if you're new to EML, the one thing to think about as you're entering stuff is you want your data package to be discoverable. You want people to be able to find it by searching. So having people, having an abstract, having keywords, having, later on we'll see geographic coverage and so on, all of those items help people do searches and find your data package, which will make it more useful to the community as a whole. So now we're looking at keywords. We have some keywords in here already. Let's say we want to add one. What does that look like? Well, we have, you can enter a keyword just typing it in, or there are a number of keywords. This is the LTER control vocabulary for keywords. And let's say I want to, I think there's one for decomposition. There you go, which is what this study is about. And there's a keyword type, which is optional. These particular types are defined by the EML standard, but I'm just going to leave that alone. Save and continue. And now decomposition is in my keyword list. So let's say I'm happy with that. That's enough keywords for me, so I'll go on. We define intellectual rights. What's the license for people reusing, citing and reusing this data? In this case, we're going to use Creative Commons CC0, which is, I believe, the default for EDI. So I'm happy with that. Save and continue. Excuse me. Geographic coverage. Here we can define the bounding box geographically for the various sites where we're doing our research out in the field. We can do it, we can enter them by hand, just entering coordinates and a description, but we can also do it from a CSV file. So you can create a file in advance that has what you need. Let me just bring up a, so here's an example. If you do the CSV file, it's required to have these columns: a geographic description and north, south, east, west bounding coordinates. So I have one created here. So I'm going to load from the CSV file. And there it is. You can also import, if you use the same geographic sites for a number of different data packages, you can also import geographic coverage from an existing data package that you've already done. Let's say we're happy with that, or we could add another one. We could add Lake Mendota or whatever, but let's just go on, save and continue. Temporal coverage is the time periods covered by the research, begin date, end date. If it's just a single date, you just leave end date blank, and you can have any number of time periods. Let's say we're happy with that. Go on, taxonomic coverage. Okay, here, now let's say let me just say a little bit about what's going on here. You enter a taxon name. So if it could be a species, or if you're looking at a whole genus, it could be a genus. And then you can pull the full taxonomic hierarchy from one of these taxonomic authorities that we support. In this case, since I'm going to search on pull it from a taxonomic authority, I don't have to supply the taxon rank. That'll be filled automatically. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. It has to go out and do a bunch of queries to the taxonomic authority, but it came back with the full taxonomic hierarchy, and it realized that the name I had entered was in fact a genus. And with it, it pulls in the common names and so on. And with each one, there's a external link to the page for that taxon on that taxonomic authority. So I just click that link. I see the page for that genus at IDIS. If I had entered a taxon that was unknown to the taxonomic authority, but I still wanted to use that name, well, then I would have to supply the taxon rank by hand, just pull from the list. But in this case, it was a known taxon. So we got everything we need, save and continue. And we could add other other species, other taxa, as many as as are covered by our research project. But I will leave it at that and go on to the next section. EML provides a place to enter information about the maintenance of your data set. So for example, if you come back every year and update it, you can indicate that here, and there are different maintenance update frequency choices that are part of the standard. And then you describe anything pertinent to how you go about doing it, anything that would be useful to somebody who wants to understand how the data is being maintained. Publisher, so save and continue. I'm happy with that. I go on. Publisher is a little bit of a special case. If you are if you are going to be submitting your data package to EDI, to the EDI repository, you actually don't need to fill in this page, because EDI will be the publisher in that case. So when the package is submitted to EDI, this information will be supplied automatically in the EML metadata showing EDI as the publisher. And likewise, publication info, the publication place and date would, if you are submitting to EDI, those would be filled in automatically as well. The intention is that this tool, the hope is that this tool will be useful to anybody who's creating EML, so even if they're not intending to submit to EDI. So these pages are still here, so you can fill in that information if you have another, a different application. But if you're uploading to EDI, you can just skip those. Go on to, there's a methods section in EML where you can have any number of method steps, where a method step, you describe what was done in that step and the instrumentation that was used, if that's relevant. It's to help, obviously help people reproduce the data and that kind of thing. Check that it's reproducible. But let's say we're happy with that. We go on to project. Projects have titles and abstracts, but they also have some complexity in that there's project personnel and any number of funding awards. So in this, let's say we look at project personnel and, oh wait, we think there's somebody else that we should add here, and I'm going to do it by importing. So import responsible party, and it's somebody else in this same data package, let's say, and this creator, I'm going to pull him in as a project personnel. Okay, so there he is. Now, if I go check metadata, oops, I see that the project personnel all require a role. So I got to be careful about that. Pulling them in, if I pull in a creator as a project personnel, the creator doesn't have a role, so that we actually have to go and supply the role by hand. So this person, for example, might be a PI. We do that for each of the project personnel. And then the funding awards, so, again, this is another case where you can have a list of these, go in and edit any individual one, or I can import from some other project. So I just randomly pulled one out. Did I just get it? Look and see if I got a chat message here. Nope. All right. So there's my funding awards, back to project. There are, besides data tables, you can attach other sorts of data entities to your project, to your data set, the data package. So in particular, you can have, say, R or Python scripts, photographs, zip files of ancillary data, and so on. Let me remove this one and show that if I wanted to pull that in from a file, it's the same kind of thing as we did with data table. You just pick the file, click upload, and ezEML infers what it can, like the size of the file, the checksum, and so on. There's no description is available, so we have to enter that by hand. Let me do that. And there it is. Let's say that's all of our other entities. We'll go on, save and continue. Now, to upload to a repository, you generally need a data package ID. And in particular, to upload to EDI, to submit to EDI, you need a data package ID in the PASTA EDI format, which is a 3-letter scope. And I forget the terminology, but the last guy here is the revision.
Data package number and revision.
Thank you. And in this case, I already have one, but if I didn't, you can go to EDI. You can either ask us, you can email us and request a data package ID, or you can go out yourself to the EDI data portal and under tools, data package identifier reservations, you can reserve the next available identifier in the scope that you're working in. But I already have one, so I'm not going to worry about that. Save and continue. Now at this point, in theory, I am done. I've gone all the way through the wizard. So the next step, it's going to be that it checks the metadata. And it sees that there were a couple of personnel where I didn't enter a role. I think this is a bug. The creator actually doesn't require a role. I think that's because I imported a creator and it pulled in a role node, an empty role node from wherever I imported it from. So sorry about that. A creator does not actually have to have a role. But once once you get this all clear, we go through and we put in these roles, then you can download the EML, and it comes down into your default downloads folder in your browser. And it's an XML file in the EML format. So I just opened that, and I'm looking at it now in an application called Oxygen, which is an XML editor. And you see, this is what EML really looks like. And this is what the ezEML application has created for you, is this complicated XML file, which adheres to the EML 2.2 standard and is ready to go. So the process would be to take that downloaded EML file and submit to EDI, which here that tells you how to do it. You can either zip up your data files and the XML file, the EML file that you just downloaded, and send it to us, or on the data portal, there are steps to evaluate, which is basically to check your data package, and then if it checks well, upload it. So you can do it by hand, you do it yourself rather, through the data portal, or you can ask us to help. And that's basically the process. So step through the wizard and get your file. And as I said, you don't have to go through the wizard in order. You can jump around. But that's it. So I think we're ready for, do we have questions or?
Yeah, we have a few questions. Thanks for that presentation, John. This looks like a very self-explanatory and slick tool that you and the team have created here. So yeah, the first question, there's actually quite a few. The first question is, when you're auto-populating the data tables, you can upload a CSV file. Are there other file types that functionality accepts? Could you upload, say, like a tab delimited text file that contains your data, or?
No, currently it's limited to CSV files. If there's, I mean, these, everything that's in here is, potentially extendable, changeable, and so on. So I think it depends on what the most common use cases are. But for now, it's CSV files.
Okay. Related to that, if that CSV file has empty values, so not white spaces, but just a value that doesn't, is kind of like a null in a sense, what would you expect to see for the missing value codes? Is that something that's inferred and
No,
auto-detected at this time, or?
no, missing values are not inferred.
Okay.
It's that would be, I mean, if you think about that, that'd be pretty tricky because just because a code seems different from the other codes in the column, that doesn't necessarily mean it stands for missing value. So
Right.
no, that's not inferred.
Okay, so then
Can I just say, if there are characters in there that don't encode properly, it does flag those for you and tells you where they are.
oh, that's great. Yeah, that's terrific. Related to that question that I just asked about empty values in a table, that's kind of a data management best practice where if you do not have a value, it should really have a code, like a missing value code associated with it. It is hard to describe in EML metadata, a non-existent value as meaning a missing value. So those empty values should really be replaced with missing value codes.
Yeah, as I was going through there, I was putting in -9999 for missing values because that's what the particular data set used, but it could be whatever, it could be NA, whatever it is that you use in your data.
Right. Okay. The text type metadata, say for your abstracts, methods, etc., does ezEML accept Markdown at this time?
It doesn't render it. It's just text.
Okay. Okay. Because I know that's a new feature of EML 2.2 where you can basically have the raw Markdown added to the EML file. But yeah, so it sounds like that's not yet supported.
Right. It's just treated as text. It's not rendered as Markdown.
Got it.
So it won't break anything if it's in there. It just won't look pretty.
Right. Okay. And then those were some of the main questions. There's actually quite a few that were in the chat, but we've been taking care of those, and there've been several new questions asked. I'm going to have to go take a look through this, but Is there anybody out there that would like to ask John a question directly? Feel free to speak up.
Let me jump in and just say I meant to mention that if you experiment with ezEML or start to use it, we would love your feedback. You can email us at support@environmentaldatainitiative.org, and we're keen to review, what you send us and act on it, especially if you see if there are bug reports or enhancement requests and so on. We'd love to see that.
John, I'm Hap Garrett with the Plum Island LTR, and I put into the chat window, I was curious if the ezEML can be used to edit an existing ezEML generated EML file for when you've submitted something to the repository, but then you need to go and update it.
Yes, if it was generated by ezEML, you would have, like, if I go up,
you could import it back in.
Yeah, I can open. I have here a bunch of files that I've done in the past, and I can open any one of those and make modifications to it and download it again. We don't, at this point, we don't read in the XML itself natively. And the reason for that, this is something we actually have code to do, that does part of it. But the problem is, the tricky thing is that if somebody reads in an XML file that was not generated by ezEML, then there will likely be things in the XML that ezEML doesn't support. The EML standard itself is very extensive and very complex. The intention here with ezEML is to provide hit the sweet spot of the 80-20 kind of rule, that these are the things that most data packages need, and we don't want to clutter it up or make it overly complex by covering everything that the standard covers. So if you read in a sort of a random EML file that wasn't created by ezEML, there's a good chance that ezEML won't be able to understand what it's reading. So at this point, we don't read XML files themselves.
Yeah, I figured that was part of the case because it's just too extensive. Yeah, but as long as it's generated within ezEML, that formatting and everything there should be comparable to be able to be re-edited in ezEML. And
Yep.
that drop-down list that you said where you can pull up ones you previously have done that with, that list could be for LTR sites, that list could be potentially huge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, and you can imagine, like, the files you create, they don't have to be full, they don't have to be valid EML files. So you could, for example, have a document that's just a bunch of personnel, right? And you have it stashed away so that every time you need to refer to somebody from your LTER site, you can just pull it up. You get what I'm saying? So you sort of have like
you would have it stashed locally.
Yeah. Oh, well, on the server, you could have, one of these guys up here could be just a document that has nothing in it but the personnel that I want to reuse.
Okay.
Right, and I never intend to submit this to any repository. It's just a file that I use to be able to import from. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So you could build up a library of useful snippets, basically, of EML files, and then import those, pieces of those into the document that you're working on.
Right.
Any other questions out there?
When will this be going live for us to try to tap into using it?
It's live now.
Okay, so I've got an EDI account and tried to get into it, and it said the page didn't load up, so maybe I'm not accessing it properly.
What's the URL, John?
ezeml.edirepository.org. What's the message you're gonna have? What are you saying?
I don't recall right now, but it said that page didn't exist or something like that.
Okay, maybe check the URL. Yeah, I just went to that URL and it came up.
Yeah, Corinna just posted the URL into the chat. It's working for me.
But if that problem continues, by all means, get in touch with us.
Yeah. No, it's working now for me. Thank you. Sorry.
Oh, cool, great.
Yep.
No problem, no problem. And just any problem you encounter, we are happy to for you to contact us.
There is a question here about PIDs, personal IDs. Wait, actually, sorry, did I get that wrong? Are those persistent identifiers? Is that what PIDs are? Like ORCiD ID for creators, project personnel, RORs, that sort of thing. I don't know if Corinna or Mark want to step in and tackle that one.
Is the question whether we'll support other things besides ORCiDs?
If ezEML supports these. Right now it supports ORCiDs, right?
Yes.
ORCiDs. Are there other, do you anticipate other options being available for, persons or say research organizations?
Yeah, that has, maybe Corinna, you can chime in, but that has been discussed in our team meetings as a future thing to have a drop-down list of these are the various, the various flavors of IDs that are available and you can pick. But right now it's just ORCiD.
I think we decided for ORCiDs to start with because the others are not quite there yet, especially those ROR things didn't seem to match very well the kind of research projects that we're supporting. So there are universities in there, but not like an LTR site, which would be very appropriate, but somehow they are not, or a field station or anything like that. So we're sort of holding off on that to see where all that is going.
So I have a question. I've been working with Morpho, with EML, making EMLs through Morpho software. Can I now make EML through this one and submit it through Morpho to other data depositories?
I don't know about the submitting through Morpho part, but any other repository where you can upload an EML file, yes. Yes, you can. So I'm not 100% familiar with submitting through Morpho.
Okay, it's just like this. You submit and it goes right on to Knowledge Network for Biocomplexity, for example.
Yeah, do they have an option to just upload an EML file?
I do not know.
And if they do, then yes, you can.
All right.
Yeah, this is just vanilla standard EML. It's, there's nothing about the EML that's created that's specific to EDI. So anywhere you anywhere where EML can be used, that what you get here will be useful. But we'd love it if you submit to us.
All right. Well, that rounds off the hour. Thanks again, John. Thanks for all the participants and their questions. This video will be uploaded to YouTube later today, and you can continue to ask questions there, or send an email to info@Environmental Data Initiative, and we'll be happy to answer your questions there as well. So thanks again, everyone, and look forward to seeing you again next time.